So good morning and welcome to Culture Matters.
Good morning, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, good morning.
Thanks for being on Culture Matters today. With the world experiencing the effects of the global pandemic, there has been significant disruption and even a sense of crisis for many organizations. As organizations grapple with the various challenges that COVID-19 has thrown at them, some have adapted better than others, and there are plenty of lessons to be learned. Today, we will find out how Tune Protect Group has been navigating these challenges and leading their way through this crisis.
It was crazy for us. We had made preparations beforehand, even before MCO was announced. We had our BCP plans in place. We already got the whole organization mobilized, split operations, scheduling, everything. And then when the MCO was just announced, it threw all of us into a tailspin. Within a short space of time, we had to accelerate all our plans. Remember, a lot of us were not allowed into the office as well. So we had to very quickly, in a few days, get the team together, mobilize the team. Everyone really rallied together. We put together, as you know, we are sort of like under financial services, so we had essential services. And I remember during the first few days, all of us were trying to figure out exactly what essential services meant, insurance companies. So there was a lot of engagement with the regulators. There was a lot of communication also among the management team. In the end, everyone just rallied together with the main focus of making sure that our employees stayed safe. In the end, we had a small BCP site in Shah Alam. We kept very, very skeletal staff at the office to make sure that we still continue to be able to serve our customers. But basically, we had to bring everyone else back home.
We were very prepared to actually move into a split operations. When I think MCO was announced, it was on the 16th of March. And it was supposed to be effective on the 18th, so literally 2 days, right? We just had to list down all the areas that are impacted. And I recall one of it was really in terms of IT, how many staff actually can work from home with proper laptops, with proper internet connectivity. So I recall our IT team actually had to source for 50 units of laptop. Thankfully, after they made many calls, they managed to get a vendor or two to actually supply that 50 units. But just getting the units wasn't enough. They had to set it up, then they had to configure it, and then some of it had to be delivered down to branches. All in all, I think we managed to do that. So there was a lot of teamwork that was really very necessary in that period of time. And at the end of the day, the important thing to the organization was really the employee safety and well-being. But at the end of the day, the important thing was that everyone needs to be safe. The admin team really went around getting enough sanitizers, face masks, and at that time, if you recall, face mask was like a scarcity, right? It was so difficult to get.
Well done, that's a great job. I think the key words are rallying and teamwork, right? Like people coming together. Trust is the foundation of relationships. When faced with an emergency, communication, or the lack thereof, with your employees and other stakeholders can support or erode that foundation. We find out how Tune Protect goes about communicating with their employees and stakeholders as they prioritize these relationships.
So employees and key stakeholders, that's a good question. We have so many different key stakeholders to take note of. Employees, yes, are most important, but stakeholders, we have our board, shareholders, our investors, our analysts, the media, our agents, our business partners, right down to the communities. It's not one way of communication that fits all. It's various and multiple. And because every time the government comes up with an announcement, there's changes to what we have actually communicated. And so it's rather fluid and rather dynamic. So our communication was very constant. For instance, to our employees, we do have our own internal communication tool. So we post a lot of updates in workplace for our employees. But after some time, we realized that every time there's a new update, employees tend to get confused, which is the latest and whatnot. So we took the initiative to create what we call an SOP or a COVID manual. Anything that's updated goes in there. There's also an FAQ. So you kind of refer to that for anything you need to know about COVID. So that helped the employees quite a bit. For agents and branches, of course, there's a lot of email communication or just pick up the phone and call. For customers, especially even in those that walk into branches, we put up notices, posters. Also on our website, we created a special tile that was just on COVID. So anything you need to know about COVID, including things like branch operations hour, the COVID coverage that we actually did provide to certain policy holders, right down to the community as well. A lot of direct interaction. We also had like certain press releases just to share. So yeah, different levels of communication was really necessary.
Definitely a lot of communication among the management team and all the working groups. We very quickly realized we had to get it out to everyone's workplace. Was really, really good for us in terms of communicating with the employees. We implemented it the year before, so now was the time that we really got them to really use it. It's really good because, the employees are able to also interact or react to whatever we post.
During that whole period of staying at home, we actually held a town hall for employees as well. It did not stop us from actually gathering in a big group. We speak about going digital, right? This really is the time where I guess COVID just made everybody be digitally savvy overnight. So that town hall was a testament that the business can still run, we can still do our work despite us working in different locations.
I think that was one of the things I noticed from this situation, the MCO, when it started, was that people just didn't know what to do, right? They were like, and so having some kind of guidelines or something to refer to is really helpful. So thank you for that.
The COVID experience was really a very humbling experience for us. Where we try to play our role, how small it is. So we do have several initiatives where we reach out to our community, our customers here being our policy holders, even our employees, our agents and their families. So we actually participated the COVID Care Fund, which is by the insurance industry, both the life and general industry. So we participated in a contribution where people who need to undergo COVID tests, we actually subsidize the test. As a company on its own, we also did pledge, I think, 1 million ringgit. We allow benefit in the untimely demise due to COVID. We actually provide a payout, and this was extended to all our customers, to our agents, as well as their family members. And also during that COVID MCO period where you can't really leave your house, we actually assured our customers if anything happens to you during that period and you think your insurance policy has expired, we ensure that your insurance continue to run. And that's our little part that we can play.
In our conversation so far, we've learned that successfully weathering the pandemic also requires a people-centric approach to both internal and remote leadership. As we explore further into the next normal with Tune Protect Group, one thing is clear: the road to recovery will almost certainly be predominantly digital. Now that we seem to be entering the COVID-19 new normal or next normal, what are your plans for managing workplace disruption in the long term?
Since the start of COVID-19, a lot of companies are starting to rethink seriously the way they work. We are definitely no different. We need to be prepared to adopt a working methodology that is sufficiently agile. So in future, right, if we have any kind of this disruption, this thing will not be a disruption per se anymore. Yeah. So actually midway through the MCO, we conducted an employee survey. We actually got a lot of very relevant feedback, and we are using that feedback to develop some alternative working arrangements. We are actually planning or hoping to implement on a permanent basis by the end of this year. So I know on and off, because we ran the survey and now we're doing all the analytics and insights, we're coming up with the proposals and policies. Now on and off, when I come to the office, right, that'll be the first thing people always ask me, hey, when is your work from anywhere coming up? When is it coming up? So I mean, this is something that we have been talking about it, but obviously with this COVID, it's accelerated our plans, and we have a really, really good business case for implementing it.
I think, we all adapted quickly to the work from home or work remotely situation. I remember when Twitter announced that their employees can work from home forever, there was huge repercussions and responses across the world. It's a separate discussion, we won't go into it today, but there are pros and cons of working from anywhere. Next normal is actually the right phrase, because we don't know what's the next thing going to happen. I mean, now is a new normal, but there'll be a next thing and a next thing. But the good thing is that you're planning ahead for any contingencies, and you can use this as a a benchmark or a case study moving forward, right?
With working from home or with working from anywhere, it's to me, it's not just as easy as asking people to stay at home, right? There are all the practical implications. You talk about tools and applications, but for us, it's also about data privacy and security. That's very important. One of the feedback, the insights that we got also during the survey and when we went around talking to people is that for those of us who have families, it's okay. We have a sizable workforce that are all single and they're living by themselves. And being in your tiny little apartment for 3 months can be quite depressing. These are all things that we need to consider as well.
Those with small families, with little children, and they're not in school, they're at home, they tend to want to be with the parents most of the time. So it does get a bit of a distraction. So it's not so easy that you are 100% fully concentrating on work. Although a lot of our business is also automated, we can't deny the fact that there are still areas that we have to be physically in the office to access certain data privacy that you can't be accessing it from the comfort of your own home. So there needs to be some form of a check and balance, and not everyone can really just entirely work from home just from there.
As businesses begin reopening for more on-site work, the ability to identify the readiness of employees from functional and emotional perspectives is paramount. It's likely that the future of work will be a hybrid model.
We work on a trust basis. As long as the function leads and the managers are able to manage their team, we are okay with it.
I guess at the end of the day, we have a work from home and we have a WFO, work from office. At times we need to have a hybrid model, which is the WFA, work from anywhere, right? This whole pandemic situation really allows us to appreciate our time working from home together with our family. So we do value that flexibility, and many of our staff and us, they quite enjoy that. They like spending time with their family and yet being able to work and avoid traffic jams, an hour traveling on the road. The thing also is, how do they then learn to manage, ensure that they have that work discipline? There's always that temptation, like even for myself, I may walk to the fridge any now and then, right? So how do you actually manage that? We as leaders in our own teams, we must be able to manage remotely while our team members are working remotely. And there's a couple of areas that we can look at. Managing remotely could be from an aspect of conducting meetings regularly, and not all the time you need to have meetings through voice only. You should once in a while have video conferencing to see how everyone's coping and keep that chat room alive. Not always about work, it could be non-work. It's one of our core values is togetherness. When you're apart, it's quite difficult for that fostering of togetherness.
You have to be flexible, right? If somebody's selling at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., it doesn't matter as long as they're doing the job.
There's a greater need for effective communication. Communication is really, really important. I cannot stress that enough. It's the regular communication, and working remotely, I think one of the skills that we also need to start building up is the skills of active listening. So it's not only what's being said, it's how it's being said, how it's being communicated online or in calls or on the phone. And trust is also very, very important. So in a work from anywhere, remote working, if you don't have that, I think it will be very, very difficult.
If this crisis continues and how it affects people in the long term, one of these sustainability development goal, which we talk about good health and well-being. For our company, prior to this, we did have a couple of areas that we focus on, what we call materiality issue. And then this year, when the crisis happened, we stopped ourselves and said, hey, maybe we need to reprioritize, and we look at good health and well-being as something that became very important, especially after the crisis happened. When you look at that, good health and well-being, if this whole crisis continue and in the long term and we don't see each other enough, the well-being of our employees from the perspective of them staying at home, keeping themselves safe from COVID is there. But in terms of their human interaction, wanting to meet up with their friends and having a lot of activities together, that suddenly become empty, right? None, In the past, we had many activities that our organization ran, like perpetually on a monthly basis. For instance, last year we had a charity bazaar. Every department actually cooked up a storm and then they started selling food to all the colleagues, and that was a very happy event. The money that gets collected goes to charity of good cause, so it makes everyone happy, right? But this year, how do we do that? So we need to be creative as well in how we want to keep that good health and well-being aspect alive, bearing in mind that when you are not exposed to COVID, that's good health, but good health also is from a mental aspect, right? How do you keep yourself happy if you continue to be away? We as team leaders or their managers, we need to be aware of what's happening there.
We are grateful to see how Tune Protect was able to stay true to their purpose for their customers and people, continually building trust through communication and listening and staying agile in order to face the challenges ahead together. Thank you both for being on Culture Matters. I enjoyed our sharing session and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much for having us, Jeffrey. Thank you.